So I am checking in with Daniel Flood. How are you doing?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. So I think you're just gonna talk about some paintings. Are these recent paintings, or are these paintings that you've had in inventory for a while?
These are actually a span over the last year. So I kind of included just a variety of what I've done over the last year. I didn't want to put all new ones. I kind of wanted to share some of the older ones I had as well. So,
Okay, cool. Well, I have to say right off the bat, obviously I looked at your stuff on Instagram, but when I was reviewing the images, like full screen on my computer, they are awesome. So I
oh,
was,
thank you.
yeah,
I really appreciate
they're
it.
really
Yeah,
amazing. I can't wait to see them in person. So yeah,
cool.
they're great. So why don't you just tell me which one you want to talk about, and I will pull that one up.
Well, I'll go with the one that was kind of like there was no concept to it. The one's called X marks the spot.
Okay,
There was two
got it.
versions, and that was basically, I just came home one day and I just kind of went to two canvases, 16 by 20s, and just drew an X,
Okay.
like, and then kind of used the X, the center point,
Yep.
and then just adding like basic geometric shapes after that. And that was one of the paintings that I actually started experimenting with like layers of color. Because I don't know if you notice, a lot of my work is just basically it's opaque,
Yep.
not washes and stuff, it's just like opaque color, a lot of geometric shapes. But X marks the spot was kind of started out with geometric shapes, but then I was doing layering effects, kind of, trying that out. And actually, those are like my favorites so far. But they had no, it was like spontaneous, just came home, started on both canvases at the same time, and went from there.
So
Added
wait,
a lot of color.
is there another one that I should be looking at?
One was red and one was blue.
Oh, here it
Actually, I
is.
still have
Gotcha. Okay.
the
Yep.
red one's behind me.
Yep.
But those were fun. It's just because it was so like spontaneous artwork. Not like not thought out. Like I was thinking about it all day. Like how do I start this painting?
Totally.
What do I do with this? It was more of just like spur of the moment. And
Yeah.
like I said, drew an X and then started adding color, shapes, and just kept building off that.
Is that
So
is that outside of your normal process? Do you normally kind of plan things out a little bit more?
sometimes, yeah, I'll draw like some geometric shapes on sketch paper and kind of use that as reference. But this was more just, yeah, very spontaneous. So, but I liked the layering effects. I'm thinking in the future I might start doing more of that, where I have like geometric drawings, but more like layered effects of paint on there. So
Yeah, good stuff. All right. Which one do you want to talk about next?
we talked about X marks the spot. I think the bridge trusses were kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I did like 5 or 6 of those, but I only gave you two that I thought that were my favorite out of the bunch.
Now, were you looking at a photograph when you were, sketching out the composition here? What can you tell me about
This is
that?
actually these were pictures I took on my phone. So we went on a vacation to Paducah, Kentucky. It was like a year and a half ago, and basically they're known for like there's a quilt museum there, and then they have a lot of murals, like the historic of the city Paducah, but then also it's on the border of the Ohio River. So there was a lot of those old like steel like trestle bridges.
Yeah.
They don't kind of like the Chicago bridges, the ones going right into the downtown area.
Yep.
So it's kind of cool to see these long bridges across the Ohio River. So I started taking photos of them. And then when I got home, I did like 6 paintings. So you kind of look at them, they're very abstract, but it kind of looks like when you're looking at the side of a bridge. That was like my vision when I did those.
Yeah. I think they're great. I think that bridges like that are so visually interesting that when I see them, they look like artwork. And I'm assuming that they were designed specifically for the mechanics, and it was about providing the most efficient way to support the weight. It wasn't about necessarily how it looked, but I always find them just so visually stunning.
Like the engineering architecture behind it and stuff like that. It's cool.
Yeah, I just think the way it looks is so interesting. And I guess I'm just assuming that I don't know how much of what it looks like was part of the design. You know, I don't know.
It's basically, it looks a little bit like, but it's, it's cropped down because I couldn't do the whole bridge. But it's basically like a cropped down section of where all the trusses and like the cable, like everything meets, the steel grids, stuff like that. So it was interesting. One of these days I want to go out to Pittsburgh. Never been there, but everybody tells me, oh, you want to see some like steel bridge work and like just a steel city, you should check out, some of the architecture there. And maybe that'll inspire you to do some paintings, as well.
Yeah.
I've never been to Pittsburgh. I heard there's some really cool, like old bridge work that people have done. So
Yeah, there's a lot
sure
of, yeah, I've been there. I haven't spent a lot of time there, but I have been there. And there's a lot of bridges. There's a lot of bridges that span, like bridges that go over roads from like mountain to mountain type of thing.
Oh, okay.
Like there's a lot of like these valleys, like right in the city. It's really interesting.
It's different.
It's just, it has a very unique look about it. It's very hilly and green and bridges that go across
Wow.
these green mountains. So it's a very interesting, visually a very interesting place.
One of these days I'm going to get out there and get my photos and wander around, take a look at everything.
So there's three things that I recommend people do when they go to Pittsburgh. You got to go to the Andy Warhol Museum because that's where Andy Warhol is from. So they have a museum that shows his work from his whole career, including when he was in advertising. If you like amusement parks, there's a great amusement park called Kennywood that has some of the most wonderful old wooden roller coasters in the world. And then there is a very famous home called Falling Water, it's also called the Kaufman Estate. That's about an hour and a half outside the city. And it's a Frank Lloyd Wright designed home, and it's spectacular.
I did hear there's a lot of Frank Lloyd Wright like architecture out there, just like Oak Park here, like Oak Park, Illinois. I heard there was a lot out in the area over there. So that'd be interesting to see. I'm sure it's awesome.
Well, it sounds like you'll have a full long weekend.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So which one do you want to talk about next?
Well, I went over the first couple. There was a circuitry ones, I believe.
Mainframe?
Mainframes, yes. There was a series I did like called circuitry, but there was two called Mainframe.
Yeah, those are awesome.
Those are actually newer. I think they're maybe a month and 2 months old, the most. And see how they're more opaque color. Like a lot of geometric shapes are just more opaque. Now, like the last four that I talked about had more like layered effects and stuff like that. But these are more just straight, just geometric shapes, a lot of different colors, all interacting with each other.
Yeah. Are these? Go ahead. I was going to say, are these are these oil or acrylic?
I do everything in acrylic. I would do stuff in oil, but the fumes are very potent. And if I was going to do that, I'd probably have to go outside. Maybe I would want to do it in the house because it's just it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
You do oil painting, correct?
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it for whatever reason. And in fact, when I was living in Boston, I used to paint right in my dining room. And I used to ask people that came over all the time if it smelled, and they said no. So I don't know. I mean, I use terpenoid, which is, I don't know exactly what it is. It's not turpentine. And then I use linseed oil. And neither one of them are that smelly.
That's good.
So
like oils, you get great effects. I mean, I've seen like some really awesome effects with oil, like the colors and stuff like that, just how they blend together.
Yeah, but I think that with what you're doing, I'm wondering if acrylic, because it dries so quickly, like you have that's an advantage to you, because with all of these clean lines.
I use my trusty heat gun a lot too.
Your heat gun?
Yeah, I have actually a heat gun over here. I use this all the time. This this is how I dry my paints very quickly.
Oh,
Sorry.
nice.
It works wonders.
Awesome.
You put acrylic down, you heat it up for like 5 minutes, and you're ready to move on. So
Awesome.
kind of nice.
See, working with oil, it's the opposite because I don't want it, generally, I don't want it to dry. Um, because it doesn't really dry. And if you add a lot of linseed oil, it, it takes a really long time to dry. So I kind of, because that's how it is, I'm so used to that.
Okay.
And I kind of use that to my advantage. I think, if anytime I use acrylic with its fast drying properties, it really throws me. So
But you do a lot of layers and blending and stuff like that with your paintings, though. So.
I do, but I have to do it over days, like,
Oh, okay.
so I
Okay.
will have to, sometimes I just know that I'm going to have to come back the next day and paint over it. And it'll still be wet a little bit. If I add terpenoid or linseed oil, I can get some movement out of what was painted the previous day.
Cool.
So it's like you kind of build a relationship with your tools. I think like the intimate details of how acrylic works, which I don't. I become really comfortable with my oils, and especially on a particular painting,
Yeah.
you kind of build a relationship with what's going on the canvas.
Okay.
Somewhat.
So there's definitely a waiting period in between oils and the layering process and stuff like that.
As far as I'm concerned, there is. I
Cool.
think so, yeah. So it's not something you're going to do in one sitting. I mean, if you're doing it outside, like a plein air type of situation, you can force it and you can make it happen in one setting. But I guess the way that I do it, it tends not to be.
Okay. Cool.
But your use of color is it's so awesome. I mean,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, it's really, where did that come from? Like particularly on these mainframes, the color is it's fantastic. And then I love how you have this grayish, kind of on
Oh, the
top.
tops on the black on the that follows the black.
Yeah, it's really,
Yeah. I tried when I first started out with some of these paintings to do a lot of complementary colors.
mm-hmm.
Because I start out really basic with geometric shapes. I mean, I'll kind of lay down maybe with these they're 11 by 14, the main frames. So they're smaller. So that might be 7 shapes in the beginning.
Okay.
Complementary, like, blues and orange, reds and greens, and then I just kind of go from there and just keep adding more colors, what complements what, and try to like work from, the middle out, like work from the inside out to the edges of the paintings.
Are you using colors right out of the tube?
Yes, for like the beginning process, it's colors out of the tube. I use the markers for fine lines though. Like I bought a couple empty markers and I put high flow acrylic in there.
Hmm.
For like like the gray line that you were talking about.
Yeah.
That is like a golden acrylic, but dumped in one of those empty markers that you can use.
Yeah, that's great. I'm not familiar with that, but that's cool. All right, awesome.
But those were paintings that kind of one day at work, being in IT, like I was telling you, I was working on like computers all day, like taking things out of them, like hard drive and different things. And you're seeing the inner workings of a machine. And I was like, oh, that looks like a mainframe or a processor. And I went home and I'm like, I'm going to draw something tonight or paint something kind of what I was working on all day. so
It's nice.
I ended up doing that.
Yeah, that's cool that you got a way to have a way to like process and express that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. So which one do we want to look at next?
We'll talk about the ancient shards one.
Okay, this one's amazing.
This was like my largest painting to date. So it was a 24 by 36. And I actually started in the middle. And why I call it like ancient shards, because it reminded me of like shards of glass.
Yeah.
The center point of it looks like these shards. And like, to me, it reminds you of like a heart. So it's like the heart of it all, it's the heart of it all. And the shards just kind of like build out from there. And
Okay.
I did my designs off that. And That was a fun painting. A lot of, I don't know if you can see it. Does it kind of remind you of a little bit like a heart in the middle? And then
Yes.
all the shards surround it from there.
Yeah, I can see that. I think it's
Somebody else told me that the top almost looks like a woman's face, like a.
oh yeah, look at that. It does look like a woman's face.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but somebody's like, oh, that reminds me of like a woman's like face, but abstracted. And I'm like,
Yeah.
So
So it's cool. It's super interesting.
what other people see, right? When they look at your work.
Yeah, you never know. You never know what people are gonna. It's always interesting to experience your artwork through other people's reactions because you're so intimately involved with it that you
Yes.
see it in a certain way, you know, and then to get other people's reaction is it's so interesting.
Yeah, because the critique is totally different than what you're going to think.
Correct.
I look at it one way, and some like 4 or 5 other people might say, "Oh, well, it looks like this and looks like this, and this is what it reminds me of." And I'm like, I never thought about it that way. So
Yeah.
but it's neat. Directions. That was another one that was kind of like X marks the spot. Very, very spontaneous. I kind of just measured the canvas and I split it down the center, and it just started like drawing like lines from the center point, and then just put down complementary colors again. But that one actually took me a couple days to do. I came back and forth, like looking at it. I was, it seemed like it was supposed to be a simpler painting, but it wasn't. At first I didn't like how it turned out. So I did step away for a couple days and come back, add more color to it. And probably like, maybe 4 days of doing that. And then I ended up finishing it up. And I was kind of happy that, with how it turned out.
Yeah. Is that purple? Is that purple a color that you mixed?
Yeah, I mixed it with a little bit of white just to kind of tone it down. Because it was that real dark dioxine purple. So I put some white in there and just just to bring down the color a bit, because then it would have been really, really dark. And it would have looked black on the canvas. It wouldn't even look purple.
Sure.
In the right light, So, but that's another one, like with X marks a spot. Directions is one of my favorite.
Nice.
So
cool.
the artist kind of has their favorite. So.
Oh yeah, I definitely have favorites. Now, are these going to be available at the Andersonville Galleria?
Yes, they will. The ones that I have left, yes, I'll have those on display there for sale. So.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so you and I are doing a group thing, well, a duo show at the Andersonville Galleria. I don't know. Do we know? There's a lot of unknowns to it right now, but I think the general idea is it's September. We don't.
Yeah,
know.
I really haven't heard too much. It's kind of like, it seems like a mystery, right? It's like,
all right, but
like how is this going down?
Well, so people that are watching this will provide more information. But Daniel, my stuff and his stuff is going to be together at the Galleria at some point in September, we think.
Yes.
So so it'll be interesting to see our stuff together because it's so different.
Yeah, you have some nice paintings. Those Dalton ones that you did, those are my favorite.
Oh, thank you.
I really like those.
Yeah, people really like those.
Guys were playing cards. It was like a card game.
Oh yeah.
That one, I like that one a lot. That was awesome.
So actually, I'll show you. That one is right here.
Oh, that's large. Wow.
Yeah, that's big. So that's actually that's from a photograph that my dad took in 1953 when he was in the Korean War. I did a whole series of photographs, paintings based on his photographs, and he took that photograph. Those are his army buddies. My dad has since passed on, so I can't ask him any questions about getting details about the guys. But yeah, that's like one of my favorite paintings. I normally have it up on the wall. I don't have it here because it doesn't fit into the Zoom call. It would just be the bottom half of it. So that's why it's on the floor. But I'm in my dining room and I actually have that I like look at it every night when we're eating dinner, and it's one of my favorite paintings.
Yeah, it has some meaning to it. Some memorial piece. That's nice. I like that one.
Yeah, thank you.
And those Daltons, I really like the Dalton ones. It's cool.
Yeah, Dalton's is interesting. It's an abandoned general store down in Lake Lore, North Carolina. And I used to go down there all the time because someone I was dating had a house down there. And I used to see this place, the abandoned general store with the gas stations in front of it. And I just thought it was so visually interesting. I would just constantly stop and take pictures. I went out there and I tried to do a plein air painting of it one time. But I ended up getting all of these photographs of it, and I've done 4 paintings
Okay.
of the general store. Well, thank you for allowing me to check in with you and see what you've been up to.
I really appreciate you giving me the time to do this.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.